Sawyer is a 2018 graduate from our Bachelor of Science Environmental Geochemical Science program, it's a mouthful, and is currently a hydrologist consultant at ERM, Environmental Resources Management in Boston. And I'm just going to give you a tiny little intro. Let's see. So you're in Boston, Massachusetts, and with ERM, you assist the development of conceptual site models to inform clients and regulators on hydrology and contaminant transport. And you're also responsible for developing data analysis and visualizations using R, and considers himself a practitioner of the geologic and contaminant modeling software LeapFrog. Also, you have your master's in science in hydrologic science and engineering, which is hydrology and water resource science, if that's correct.
Yep, yeah, more or less. I think it's just a fancy way to say hydrogeology, honestly.
Great. So I was reading a little bit of your bio on LinkedIn, and so everything I've introduced so far about you sounds very complicated, but I think on your LinkedIn bio, you kind of boiled it down to like appreciating nature and that humans can give back or not just kind of take from the environment. But in your words, what would you say, how you decided to go into this field and just a little bit more?
In the long run of my career path, I started basically being 2 years old and falling face first into a stream and never getting out. I kind of always knew I wanted to be somewhere in nature and understanding those systems and how they interact, how to treat them right. It's helpful. Grew up in a rural setting with a lot of woods. So I think I was kind of just on the path for a long time, personally. And honestly, the biggest thing is I think a lot of students probably had the same experience who'll be watching this, is I had a really good teacher in high school who did earth science and really locked it in for me, made me choose this and then choose the EGS program at Paltz.
Okay, great. So tell us about your current position at ERM.
Yeah, so technically I am, what's the term? There's a couple of different terms in the corporate hierarchy. I think it's a staff hydrogeologist. So it's still currently more on the entry-level side of things, and compared to some of the other guys. I'm younger and took some time with grad school. But like you said, what I do a lot of is I'm in a junior technical role where I support gathering a lines of evidence and data together to develop these site conceptual models, which are sort of these semi-quantitative models of hydrogeology, of contaminant fate and transport. Depends what the issue is and stuff I don't work on, but there's air quality, there's air movement, sensitive receptors, ecology, things that can also go into it. But I'm firmly in the geology and hydrogeology camp of that, where a lot of what I do is either oversee the development of figures working with our GIS team, or develop my own figures, develop figures independently, probably a better word, for these different documents using different programs that I've got a good skill set in, that some of the generation of guys and women who are working in this field aren't as in touch with, just because they're about 10, spent 10 years in the field, and they really haven't had time, unlike some of me being younger, digital native, can kind of come in with a little bit more just skills and adaptations to some of these new digital workflows and digital tools we have. I run a lot of support that way for some of the senior and principal consultants at the firm is a big thing. And then I think students might be asking, so I'm talking a lot about data viz, maybe where does the geoscience come in? And I find that comes in currently in my role is more about understanding what seniors and principals want to want to see, kind of understanding what they're asking for, knowing what clarifying questions to ask. Since I'm currently not like at the head of developing a project, pulling all those threads together. It's much more like I'm handing these more senior consultants the yarn to make the sweater or the conceptual site model, is the way I would sum it up.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and I think something that you just mentioned is that you kind of you want to give them the information that they need to make the decisions, and kind of are thinking like what do they want and in what form do they want it. Yeah, thank you so much. So could you share if you had any internships, which I believe you did, a little bit about that and what that taught you?
I had 2 formal internships going through college, and then one that I kind of consider informal, but it was during the school year as a research assistant. The first one I had was with Dr. Chowdhury for all the geology and I think it's environmental science now. It's no longer environmental geochemical science in the new Paltz for all the majors there. There's a really great internship program that I'm very sorry I cannot remember the name of for the life of me right now, that you should ask your advisors about if you're interested in doing some research, getting an internship internally at New Paltz over the summer. And with that, I studied sediments and their hydraulic properties, or the properties which control some of the transport and movement of water through these sediments in the Catskills with Dr. Chowdhury, due to a lot of issues with banks in that region eroding into streams and causing high turbidity in the Geochem reservoir, which, as I assume the geo people know, or others will know from NYC, is the biggest water source for New York City coming out the Catskills. So I did that, and then a couple years later, I was down for a summer due to some fun surgery, and then the following summer, after my junior year of college, I was an environmental affairs intern for Central Hudson, where I primarily helped them adhere to regulations and then also do some very simple 1D modeling of the chance of any oil leakage coming from transformers entering a protected waterway, which was, or a protected waterway specifically along their substations, which was a lot of substations, I'm not going to lie. So I helped them out with that, and then helped also verify people in the community who can take their backfill from Central Hudson, because there's some regulations that I haven't looked at in 5 years now or so, but it's something when they pull out ground material, they can't put it back, but it's clean, so they have piles of it, and they try to have a program to hand it out, give it to the community, whoever need, like filling in around their basement, landscaping, stuff like that. And the only thing we need to do is I oversaw helping verify that this person's just got clean land, they're holding to the agreements, there isn't like metal they're trying to bury or they're covering stuff up, kind of thing. So I also oversaw kind of the movement and replacement of this backfill as well.
My guess is that, and I don't know, but through this work, sometimes you find out things that you'd rather not know.
Yeah. In the environmental affairs one, department, there was definitely some stuff where it was like a private owner's land, and we just looked at it and it was like, that's not pretty. That's not good. That's a drum with a big crack in it. We don't have any legal authority over them. We just can't give them this backfill because then we're going to get implicated, was kind of the idea. Yeah, but then other times it was nice when we go out to other community members' homes, and if like a transformer got hit by a lightning bolt and leaked the oil that was inside it, we would bring some shovels and clean it up and help them out that way. Mostly shovels and sawdust, if I remember right. For small spills, there were larger spills that I believe that a response team for, but we would handle some of the smaller ones and some of the finalized cleanup of that at this environmental affairs internship. Yeah.
That's great. Would you say you get out into the field a lot with your job, or is it mostly the data end of it at this point?
In my position and kind of the way I've set myself up with some more of the digital tools and whatnot, I'm like 95/5 split of in the office versus the field. So I get out, particularly in my job, to get field experience to understand how the data's collected, what goes on, just the human errors that occur, just the reality of these things. But commonly in environmental consultancies, people at my level will have much more of like a 90-10, 80-20 split of field work to office work as they come in. So I'm actually in a very, I think, a particularly lucky role where I get to be applying some of the technical knowledge outside the field with digital tools instead of working in the field. Not to say that others won't have these opportunities, but you need to be ready to come in to do some field work and environmental consulting. But you can definitely leverage having some digital tools under your belt, whether it be modeling, whether it be coding, whether it's you're just freaking amazing at PowerPoint and can make really good looking figures that way, and you can turn the heads of more senior consultants. It'll get you out of the field quicker and let you kind of start working on more of the technical aspects. Or if you like the field, I know senior consultants who that's all they do is they just are in the field every day just managing sites, and they have a pretty good time too.
Yeah. Would you say that because you go and you get your degree, undergraduate degree, and then even your master's, but would you say that you learn a ton by being at work and doing the job?
Yeah, I was just talking about this. So I have in my company, ERM, we can get a senior consultant. If someone takes an interest in you, you can get a technical mentor, like a formalized relationship internally. And so I was actually just talking to my mentor yesterday, and we were discussing a bit the difference between sort of academic knowledge versus like a working knowledge base. So it feels like coming out of school, you have a lot of stuff in your head, you have a lot of theory, but maybe not all the dots are connected. Maybe you can't pull in that knowledge exactly when you need it. And on the job, you get a lot of training where you can begin to make those lines between the dots, or just simply just cement the knowledge base you have. Because the nice thing about consulting is really a lot of it, unless you're really good at the nitty-gritty, it's a lot of just the fundamentals, but it's about being able to tie those fundamentals together at the same time. And yeah, I mean, kind of in summary, it has been very helpful to tie everything together and to begin to develop that working knowledge base of things you do every day, things you talk about, things you really get to know over the span of 5-10 years, 2 years for me so far, two-ish, that really get cemented into you that like you just don't get so much through academia, because there's plenty of PhD students and stuff who know their stuff through your initial undergrad education, I would say, 'cause you get a lot thrown at you and don't always have time to internalize it. And it's much more you come out prepared to take 3 weeks instead of 3 months to understand these concepts, or half an hour instead of 3 hours to have certain things delegated to you to understand what's happening. And that was a big turning point, at least for me, in my ego of realizing I don't know everything and have to start solidifying things into working knowledge.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to say that as a person who's much older and has a lot of experience in the field, that I'm learning every day, and it definitely keeps it fresh. But when I think back to my undergrad and my grad school, and I think they prepared me very well, content-wise, and then I have, internships. It's, you just working is where you learn a lot of the hands-on day-to-day. So I always like to share that with students, because if they're graduating, sometimes they feel like, I don't know, like they can't always see the next step and how that's going to work. But it's not like you're the expert the day you're hired. You're just always learning, and then things are changing. So
And then
like the data.
the nice thing about it, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but like the data science is like a whole other level of education and application. So yeah, so thank you. Can you talk about a challenge or obstacle that you've faced so far in your career or profession, and how you dealt with that?
Yeah, I think my biggest hurdle was actually going to grad school. I went for my PhD, and then about 2.5 years in, it really kicked in that I don't think it was the right choice for me. The biggest hurdle there, actually, I describe it as, is redefining or reorienting some of my self-identity away from the career path I had chosen. So honestly, the way I got through it was initially just, contact the right people, tell them your plan, kind of thing. But you would just start applying for jobs, and you start doing it, and you also just talk to people, because then all of a sudden, like in my case, I kind of built up this idea that people expect me to do this. You know, I'm a PhD student now. I'm going to go all the way. I'm going to be awesome. This is great. This is the path. And I thought I'd built myself up in the eyes of everyone else. And turns out it was just me. I only built myself up with that narrative. And everyone else was like, oh, yeah, cool. That's awesome. Like, I'm like, change away. And realize that some of the pressure was really just internal. So the big thing I would say is, like, if you're in a position where you have this idea of where you want to go, don't ever be afraid to reevaluate it. This is definitely a skill. I work on it, but, have enough self-respect, develop your self-esteem, self-reflection abilities that if you're in a position where it's not good for you, be able to pull the ripcord and to step out and make a change. You can stay in the same field, even if it's just, putting your time at one job and the team there is just, you're not clicking with them. You respectfully given you 2 weeks, I assume, and I have, fortunately enough, I had to quit a job. But you put in your 2 weeks and then you find a new job. But definitely that was the biggest hurdle for me, was kind of finding some of that self-esteem, self-respect, and realizing that career is awesome, career is super important, but it isn't the be-all, end-all. I had to kind of be human and learn to pivot, which, it sounds weird talking about in a career IG Live, but kind of made my career way better, I gotta say. Like, it put me in a much better spot where I'm kind of working with people that I understand a lot better on subjects I can do better on, problems that I mesh with more, and yeah,
Yeah, thank you. I love that input, and I think that's really helpful to students and people who have been working a long time, because you always check in with yourself and see if you're on the right path for yourself, and that changes along the way. And to be able to just talk about that a little bit, how others have expectations for you, or at least you think they do, and but just knowing for yourself, and that's really the most important person. So I'm always hoping that students, and even like my niece and nephew, that they will reflect and be in touch with themselves, because I would never have that expectation, like, just for them to pursue like what makes them happy, but in the way as well. And then sometimes society has messages and about different levels of success, and it's whatever works best for you is probably where you're going to be most successful. So thank you, that's huge. So I'm just going to ask you, what would you wish you had known, or what would you like to tell your college version of yourself in terms of gaining skills or just getting ready for life after college?
I covered a bit of it. I mean, my response just there is really, I know I fell into a narrative of what I expected myself to do and what others to do, so I kind of closed myself off to some opportunities of applying for jobs. I picked one grad school, got accepted, I went to it, worked out. I mean, got a free master's out of that, so I'm not going to poo-poo that at all. It didn't work out perfectly, but it worked out very well. But there were probably other cool opportunities out there. I should have, and there are times I wish I'd explored them. But yeah, just kind of be open. Don't let yourself fall into your narrative of your career. I would say I try my best to have a 5-year plan that I reevaluate every 3 months, basically, or something like that. There's probably a catchy way to say it. I know for me, just with the way the world is moving too, I wish I'd kind of even just build a little bit more of a foundation in statistics and machine learning in college, just because it seems like, I assume everyone who's going to watch this is aware of ChatGPT and just all of the new tools. I think Midjourney, other ones I can't think of right now, all the generative AI that's currently coming out, and it seems like all the companies are currently, I know mine is, in the back rooms, trying to figure out how to apply it, how to use it to automate it, to make new reports, move talent to different areas in the company where they can really focus and streamline their work process and not admire down to their writing or, you know, visualization making, reports, inputs of just getting data into reports. So I think having a foundation of that in my time, 2014, 2018, would have been useful. I think it's still useful now, and it's one of those things where I think most of the people are probably halfway there to where they need to be at this time. Maybe just, you know, duck your head in a little bit more, I would say, just to be aware of it, because these are definitely tools on the horizon.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I just was thinking that research opportunity, was that the Shore?
Yes, that's it. Yes, there's the Shore Grant. Yeah. Yep, that was a good program.
Student undergraduate research something.
An experience?
Experience?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, those are all great things that you've shared. So thank you. You know, one thing that also, if you could talk a little bit about, is like day to day. Like, what would you say some of the things are that you do? Like, start answering emails, meetings, just so students can get a sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's in corporate life, there's answer emails, communicate. I would definitely say communicate more than you expect is one thing I'm realizing. Reach out to your teams. Like today, most of my day was this morning. I spent a couple hours talking to our GIS team and just delegating what some visualizations we needed to make for a report I'm working on to go out. And I was really just talking to them, running through things, making sure we had down pat. Then me double checking, you know, with the senior consultant that I communicated with them right. And then later today, actually, kind of the rest of the day, I have been working on a sample tracker for a really big coal-fired power plant in Ohio that I work on. They're attempting to, I think, in the long run, clean up some of their coal ash residue and their byproducts and shift to hopefully a different power source. And sometime, I haven't entered the timetable, but I think that's the idea. And there's just so many samples coming in and out of that site that I got elected. I'm just this year to be the person who sits down and tries to begin to track all of them. So that was a lot of Excel sheet work. So the nice thing with some of the stuff like that is it's with the sample tracker and reformatting this Excel table, I just threw in a podcast and some music and was just going. So that was kind of a nice relaxing day. Other days I'm opening up stuff like R, just kind of doing a little bit of coding and tweaking data analyses, you know, really data viz. Someone's like, hey, I need to see this. I think this plot would look good. Can I get a draft? Basically, you do it. Kind of go through that workflow cycle a bit. Do the same thing as a program called Grapher, which my company likes to use, which is just, it's literally just a grapher. So it's a very apt name. And other than that, a lot of it is also just, I got to say, it boils down to a lot of communication. I think coming out of undergrad, especially coming out of grad school where I was like an individual researcher, if you choose to go the either corporate or governmental route, more or less what I would consider non-academic route, the amount of time you spend communicating with your teams and team building and talking and fleshing out ideas is more than you would think, and it's not a bad thing at all. At least for me, that's one of the issues I had with my PhD program, was I was by myself in a corner banging my head against a wall, and that just doesn't work for my psyche and my mental build. So yeah, a lot of it's communication, a lot of like Microsoft Teams, just messages back and forth and whatnot. So the day-to-day kind of, yeah, day-to-day is a bunch of communication, and then for me, it's building graphics or helping format reports, and hopefully I'll be getting into some writing now, some technical writing soon. A little bit more of a day-to-day too, yeah.
Thank you. You know, I always think that sometimes you're in college and you're doing group work or group projects, and you're like, oh, why am I doing this? And then it's like, oh, this is why. So, yeah, I think that's a huge takeaway, that you will be talking with your team and communicating, and ways to do that, to be communicative and respectful, and a lot of that is figuring it out along the way, definitely. Do you work remotely a lot, or are you in the office?
I work remotely, probably currently more than I should. I should be getting in the office probably about once or twice a week, and not quite making that goal just yet. But yeah, I'm fortunate, especially with all the office work I do, with more of the data viz things that I've done. I get to work remote and provided with a laptop and a little stipend to have my home office, which has been very nice. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Sorry, my cat is chewing on a periodic table right now. She's kind of joining in. But that's science related, I guess, so that's okay. All right.
I'm surprised my cat hasn't been yelling at me, so.
So I wanted to just thank you for spending your time today and sharing your expertise, and you're definitely another one of our amazing alumni. And yeah, keep us posted. Have a great week. Enjoy. There's some big things coming up, and I really thank you for your time, Sawyer.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day, Dawn.
You too. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.